Okay, I'm glad you chose this enrichment because this is really one that will be helpful to you on the finding LCM. Hopefully you'll try it before the Unit 3 test. That would be great. But I promised previously that I would show you the modified ladder. Um, you can use it to find the least common multiple for two numbers or for more than that. You might recall that the ladder method, the way we learned it before, you could only use it for two numbers at a time, but not for 3, 4, or more. So this is a modified ladder, so it's a little bit different. You still write the numbers in the same way across and put your rung of the ladder. Scroll up a little bit. So you start in the same way. You keep trying to divide by numbers that divide into all three as long as you can. So when I look at this one, I might divide by 4. So I'd get a 6, a 9, and a 16. Now when I get here, all three numbers don't have something in common, but some of the numbers do have something in common. So this is where the modified ladder differs. For example, I might look at 6 and 9 and think, oh, well, 3 goes into both of those, but it doesn't go into 16. That's okay. Still going to factor out a 3, so I'd get a 2 here, a 3 here. When it doesn't go, you just bring the number down. That's kind of the different part. Now once you're here, you look at 2 and 16 and you say, oh, well, those have something in common. They have a 2. So I'll factor out a 2, so I'll get a 1 here. Since 2 doesn't go into 3 evenly, I just keep it. 2 into 16, 8. Now once you get here, you notice there's nothing you can divide into each of the three numbers other than 1. Well, your goal here, and let's write that out to the side. Your goal is to have the bottom rung all ones. So I've got 1 1 right here, but I've got a 3 and an 8. So to make the 3 a 1, I would have to factor out a 3. Well, 3 doesn't go into 1, so you bring it down. 3 into 3 once. 3 doesn't go into 8, so you keep it. So you've almost got all your 1s. You've got a 1 here and a 1 here. You just need to make that 8 a 1. So you'd have to divide by 8. So again, 8 doesn't go into 1, so you keep it, keep it. 8 goes into 8 one time. Now you're still going to multiply the L shape to get your LCM. But the bottom rung is all 1s. And multiplying by 1 doesn't affect your result. So really, you're just multiplying the numbers on the left side of the L. So I'm going to have to scroll down just a little bit more and go over this other example just a minute. So what you would write is underneath it, LCM equals, and write out all the numbers that you're multiplying in the same order that you have them in your ladder. 4 times 3, 2, 3, and 8. I'll scroll a little bit. So from here, just show it kind of in steps. I think I would probably multiply the first two together and get 12. I'll keep the 2, and 3 times 8 is 24. And I did that just because it's easy to multiply things by 2. Well, 24 times 24, I happen to know that that's 576. If you need to do scratch work on that, just don't do it on the paper that you're turning in with your enrichment. Do that on scratch paper. And that's it. Now to check yourself, you could go back and find the LCM using the alternative method that we've talked about, either with prime factorization, or you could just do two numbers at a time. We did that on note 7.5. That was optional, so you might not have done it. So if you didn't do that, then use prime factorization to verify your work. All right, let's try one more example, and then we'll get you, whoops, sorry, gotta erase. Okay, sorry about that. Forgot I wrote on my previous example, so we'll just erase that. All right. And everybody's ladder won't look exactly the same. Just kind of keep that in mind. So you got 50, 80, and 120. You're probably thinking like me, factor out a 10. So that would give me a 5, an 8, and a 12. When I look at these, I notice 8 and 12 both have a 4 in common. So I factor out a 4. 4 doesn't go into 5, so I keep it. 4 into 8 twice. 4 into 12 3 times. 4, 2, and 3, now those are all relatively prime. I'm going to factor out, I could just start with the 5, turn that into a 1, keep the 2, keep the 3. Then if I want to turn this 2 into a 1, I'll factor out a 2. It doesn't go into 1, so I keep it. It goes into 2 once. It doesn't go into 3 evenly. I keep it. Now I'm going to turn that 3 into a 1 by factoring out a 3. Keep this one, keep this one. That becomes a 1. Remember, when the bottom rung is all 1s, you've got what you need to find your LCM. So my LCM would equal 10 times 4 times 5. Do not leave out this step. 2 times 3. It's not really necessary for me to put times 1 times 1 times 1 because it doesn't affect the product. Now here, I'm going to leave the 10. It's easy to multiply things by 10 later. So I've got 10 here. Oh, this is convenient. 5 times 2 is 10. So I'm going to have 100 times 3, which is 300. Now, minimally, you should go back to your numbers. Oh, something's not right with that. And how I know is 12. Let's pause for a second. Well, I found my mistake. I totally forgot about this little 4 right here. And the reason I knew I'd made a mistake is I was just going to look up at my numbers, and I look at 50, 80, and 120, and they don't all divide into 300. Like I knew 120 didn't go into 300. So right here, I jumped over this little 4. Let's go back and fix that. So I've got 10 times 4 times 10 times 3. Okay, so that's 40, that's 30. Now I'm getting an answer that makes sense. Although I will say it's really not enough to check just to make sure that the numbers divide into the answer that you get. You need to make sure that it's actually the least common multiple. So you have 5 problems to work on the enrichment, and if you miss more than one, you don't get all 3 credits. So it's worth your time to kind of verify your answers. Well, I hope you have fun working enrichment number 17.